The Tamara Scott Show. Tamara has served as the state director for one of America's largest pro-life, pro-family public policy organizations. In 2007, Tamara was named one of America's top 10 most influential kingmakers by the Religion News Association. Tamara has spent years proclaiming and defending the values of a Christian worldview that is the foundation of our constitutional republic. And now, here is your host, Tamara Scott.
Everybody, welcome. I am Tamara Scott. It's the Tamara Scott Show, helping you live God's Word in today's world when the headlines hit home. And of course, they, hit home more harshly and a little harder than we'd like sometimes. But here's the deal. If God expects us to live through it, He's directed us how to do it somewhere in His Word. And in America, it is concerning the things that are happening, the things that we're uncovering. The good news is we do have a president, I believe at this point, that is trying to right things, fix things. Now, is he human? Yes, he is. Will we agree with everything that he wants to do? Likely not. And we need to be careful that we don't put any politician on a pedestal, that we hold them all accountable, and that we maintain our biblical foundations as a nation and our Constitution as a people. That is key, absolutely key. And so with that, I think we're on a good road to recovery, but we'll see. Government is shut down. I did a quick little search to see, or partially shut down. Did a quick little search to see what the headlines say. It was not on the first page of headlines. Susanna Guthrie's mother disappearing out of Arizona, which is concerning, though we don't have many details, and the ones we have seem scattered. It is concerning. But that was precedent over a government shutdown. This doesn't seem to be a big deal for people anymore. And when you talk to folks along the road and you say government shutdown, they don't seem to care. We'll come back and talk about that at the end of the program. First, I have several things I want to ask our guest. Congressman King is our guest today. I'm always delighted to have Congressman King on the show. I'm delighted to have conversation with Congressman King anywhere I can get it. Now, if you remember, I meant to bring your book over here. It's on the counter over there in my studio. Congressman King was likely the first that I remember congressional member to be a victim of the word police when the New York Times printed an article alleging comments were supposedly made that were supposed to be offensive, though there was no proof, no tape, no evidence, not even a transcript. And yet today, 6 short years later, well, maybe 8 short years later from that article, a Democrat in Congressman King's district, Iowa Nice District, has blatantly posted an ad with Republicans. In fact, Thomas, can you go to that link and put up that ad now so our viewers can see it? This is the post of Jeff Kaufman's post and the ad with the newspaper article on it. Thank you so much. So to the right, viewers, you can see that ad, Trump plus Republicans equals, and you see the swastika, welcome Gestapo, and thank you for zooming in, Brian Alexander signed it, not anonymous, signed it. He's so proud of this. So this was premeditated or planned, paid for, and explosively poor taste. Yet I've heard no rebuke from the Democrat Party, from gubernatorial candidate Rob Sand, who's trying to play Mr. Nice Guy moderate, even quoting scriptures, getting millions, I hear, from his Republican in-laws. I don't know how that works, frankly. And then the state chair, Rita Hart. Nothing, nada. The press, haven't heard, seen anything. Where is the outcry? Congressman King, you didn't get this kind of cover-up. You were attacked for things I don't believe you said, at least in the context they tried to pretend you said them. You want to talk about this? If anybody should, you deserve the right to.
First of all, yes, I was rebuked and attacked by the leadership of my own party across the board, and all for something that was a misquote in the New York Times. And as you said, there was no tape, there was no transcript, and there were no notes that the reporter had on the side. I could hear him typing, and several times in the interview, he's asked me to repeat. And I repeat, I could hear him type again. I know that there's no one who can type as fast as I normally talk. I asked the stenographers on the floor of the United States Congress, who are the best in the world at keeping up with how fast you talk, and they can do about 240 words a minute. She says she has to go back to the tape to catch up with me, habitually, this reporter, no way could he write with commas and hyphens and all the punctuation. So in the end, we do have him on tape saying, well, I didn't think that was going to be the quote that did it, which means it was supposed to be the article that did it. And he was surprised that they picked that quote. And so, by the way, of all those things, there's never been a first person accuser of Steve King for any of these things, none of them whatsoever. And I surely would find out about that. So here we have again, this, sure, Democrats attacked me, but so did the Republicans. And whatever the standard is to the other side of the aisle, the Republican leader or the Democrat leadership is stone cold silent on this. And the viciousness of what they put in that paper, in the local paper of all things, that's unconscionable to start that, especially when you're looking at what's happening in Minnesota and other places around the country and the danger out there that's fomented. This puts danger on ICE, but also when people confront ICE, it puts danger on them. And the idea of a swastika being up there, that's part of freedom of speech. They can burn the flag. I guess they can post a swastika. But when you start inciting riots with that, that's a different story. And so I'm glad that not only that our state party chairman, Jeff Kaufman, issued a very good statement on this, but so did, if I'm interpreting it correctly, Robert Fonder, who is the chairman of the Pocahontas County Republicans. He wrote also a Facebook piece that I thought was just excellent. And that's when I would lift that one off and use that to apply to any circumstance like this. But no answers from anywhere. I don't know if Alexander is being isolated, getting any phone calls from any of his friends and colleagues. As far as I know, he's probably smirking over a cup of coffee right now.
Right? Exactly. That no one's hearing about this in the media or otherwise. Rob Sand, the premier Democrat candidate for governor, who, as I said, parading the state, pretending to be a moderate, pretending to be a conservative and even a Christian. And I don't know his heart, only God knows his heart. But you can quote scripture all you like, but your policies are going to really shine whether or not you're obedient to God's word. And so this is just really interesting. Not anything. I don't know who Brian Alexander is, and I wish no harm on anyone, but boy, oh boy, oh boy, the what do we call that? Double standard?
Mhm.
Oh, Lee. So yeah, I just wanted to
It's-
bring that out. And I need to say, what does Robert's statement say? What did the chair of the
I don't
Pocahontas
think I can
County?
do it from memory. I just remember reading it. It was a composite statement, just beautifully from beginning to end. And whoever sent that to me, I don't know if I can pull it up
I
again.
sent it to you in a text. Yeah, okay, so in light of the recent ad that was placed in our county newspaper, the Pocahontas Record Democrat, by the way, is the name of the paper.
Yeah.
A member of the Pocahontas County Democrat Central Committee placed an ad in advertiser that stated, okay, so they're going through the ad, and then they say the freedom of speech is foundational principle of our constitutional republic, ensuring individuals the right to express themselves freely without regard to offensive or disagreeableness of their views. However, this freedom is not absolute. Individuals must be prepared to face the consequence of their words, whether they be legal, personal, or professional. As a county party, we unequivocally denounce any form of political violence directed towards individuals who create content that may be upsetting, including those within our county and national party. We also reject any advocacy for violence or death threats against law enforcement officers, including federal ICE officers. Furthermore, we do not support or condone any form of violence or death threats against public officials or their families. As a nation, it is essential that we engage in respect in the constructive dialogue, exchanging ideas rather than insults. We must strive to create an environment where we can engage in robust debate rather than resorting to personal attacks. As Socrates once said, when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the losers. So, and they said in conclusion, we apologize for this very inflammatory. Oh, in conclusion, we call on the Democrat Party to apologize for this very inflammatory violence, inciting statement that was made. And this is from the Pocahontas County Republicans. So, I mean, Congressman, this is just so unlike. We have differed for decades, and the divide has grown deeper. I mean, David Barton tells us that in the 50s and 60s, Democrats and Republicans largely agreed on moral issues. It
Mhm.
was the issues of taxation and who we taxed and how we taxed that usually separated us. So the divide has grown more deep. Um, and more harsh. But golly, I've not seen this at the county level
No.
in Iowa politics. It is a new low.
Well, it is that. And I would just point out also to the viewers here, Tamara, that when I went to Congress, I didn't have a count on the number of pro-life Democrats there were, but there was a good number. And it was a pro-life effort, a bipartisan pro-life effort. But I do remember about 10 years, 12 years before I left Congress, there were 60 pro-life Democrats in the US House, a respectable number. And it was reflected in their politics. By the time I left, there were zero.
Mhm.
And I watched them scrub the pro-life people out. Some of them were named Dan Lipinski, Colin Peterson from Minnesota, and there's been Henry Cuellar down there that he's marginally pro-life, quietly pro-life, I think, but they scrubbed it out of their party. The moral standard piece of this thing is no longer exists that way, and but I just want to say again that this piece from the Pocahontas County Republicans, I just know by the verbiage that's there, that's Robert Fonder. And if we're talking to him, I get more and more fonder of that guy each time he comes out. And that's the message. It should be the way. It's very balanced. It's how you handle these things. And the disagreeing with objective dialogue is a good thing. I guess I'd say that about the only way you can find an extended discussion these days without getting into a bitter argument or making somebody mad or storm off is you can argue with AI all you want, and I'm never going to get mad at you. And so, but I reject this kind of politics. It adds poison to the culture. It adds poison to politics. And the young people that are watching us think it's okay. They don't remember a time when it wasn't like this. And so that poison spills into the next generations. And we need to be very concerned about that now. I would add also that I was attacked for defending Western civilization.
I know.
My statement was, all right, I get this about white nationalist and white supremacy and Nazi and racist, all of those things. But what about Western civilization? Why did I take all those courses in Western civilization being taught about why our civilization is the predominant first world civilization? Why did I study all that? Only to find out that it's a pejorative term that they're accusing me of. And another one would be I get accused of identifying the Great Replacement. And that happened in 2018 in an interview I did with a Vienna, Austrian newspaper. And that term great replacement was injected into the conversation by the reporter. And I said, yeah, I guess you could call it that. Look what's happening. Europe is filling up with people from another part of the world and a whole other set of culture and religion. The US is filling up in the same way. The replacement is nearly successful across Europe if you're sitting from the other perspective of that. We're faced with the same demographic shifts in this country. And Trump's trying to reverse that so that we can get back to being Americans again. And are we going to be a civilization that somehow or another we've just absorbed this thing called what? White guilt, and decided that all civilizations are equal because immigrants have traditionally and assimilated into our American civilization. There's a presumption on the part of the left that they all will. And of course, they've proven that to be wrong, especially in places like little Somalia up there in Minnesota.
So your words are I appreciate you reminding us what the supposed offense was. And I do remember you were studying Western civilization and the fact that Christianity and Western civilization were responsible. Where those two things were together, we had liberty, the greatest liberties, the greatest advances. And I don't think it's just a coincidence. I think that it was a result of those two items, Christianity and Western civilization both. And so we've got to go to our first break. When we come back, we'll play. We'll talk about another headline because you mentioned how this impacts our students. And not to mention our chairman, Jeff Kaufman, mentioned Melissa Hortman, the Minnesota Speaker of the House, and her husband, Mark, that were killed because of the rhetoric and the hatred. So these comments have consequences. And I think the chairman said, when you use things like Nazis, people understand Nazis are to be hunted. They're not to be discussed or argued with. They're hunted, stopped, and killed. And that's what this is somewhat, he said this radicalizes people. We'll be right back. Congressman King is my guest. Stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
I need to tell you about our Bella Grace. The slender little sachet has the elixir with the collagen, astaxanthin, and cat's claw. In 2022, got an award for helping with cognitive function, and in 2023 in the sports arena for active ingredients, nutrition, and format. But the best is what we hear from so many of you. You have noticed better joint health, improved mobility, less eye strain and fatigue, helping with computer vision syndrome, visual acuity, depth perception, alleviating dry eyes, but also helping with your immunity, your stress management, endurance, less fatigue overall, not just eye fatigue, muscle recovery, mental clarity, focus, and gut health. Then there's the fun list. The firmer, smoother skin texture, fewer fine lines and wrinkles, improved skin elasticity, decreased age spots, or even skin tone, improved skin hydration, reduce oxidative stress, healthier nails, less cellulite, hair health, better sleep. Who wouldn't want any of those? Call them beauty items if you wish, but who doesn't want to feel a little bit better or more confident when you're going to present in the public square, when you're going to speak at a city council? And who just doesn't want to feel a little healthier? Maybe they're just byproducts of being healthier. More information at tamara.bellagraceglobal.com, tamara.bellagraceglobal.com.
All right, everybody, thanks for staying tuned. Congressman King is my guest today. Always a welcome guest, whether on air or if I just get to see him somewhere and get a conversation. All right, he mentioned the fact that this rhetoric we're talking about. I mean, rhetoric. And I said then there's a difference between rhetoric and truth, right? What we're seeing, what the congressman is talking about, what we're talking about with this ad from Brian Alexander in Pocahontas County, Iowa, is rhetoric. That is, as our chair says, the type of speech that radicalizes people. All right, so I'm going to jump ahead. This Fremont, Nebraska. So again, one of our quiet Midwest, nice states where we usually don't have too many problems. Students for Fremont High School facing massive liability after a student was struck by an SUV during an ICE walkout. Shocking new footage has emerged from the Thursday walkout at Fremont High School in Nebraska, where a student-led protest against ICE turned into a nightmare. A student was struck down and hospitalized after being hit by a red SUV. This says the article, the SUV had a Trump flag. I don't know or not. And it says it accelerated into the crowd. I don't know or not. If so, we trust that justice will take place. But the mother of the injured student has publicly stated she believes the high school bears significant responsibility for the incident. The mother claimed her daughter actually was allowed to make her protest poster during class time, the school to career course. So maybe the career course is being a paid protester. I don't know. Questioning why teachers weren't paying closer attention to the safety of the students. Legal experts and parents are now arguing that the school is directly liable when a minor child is in the school building during school hours. Administrators are legally responsible for their safety. The school is saying the demonstration was non-school sponsored, though they admitted administrators were near the protest to ensure the students were safe and peaceful. Despite staff being present to monitor the student activity, the situation escalated until students entered the street, directly leading to the collision. The incident occurred during a nationwide wave of walkouts and shutdowns following the recent deadly confrontation between agents and protesters in Minnesota. Congressman, I've got a couple of comments, but you want to go?
Well, I guess my first one is that she was outside the school on the street, And that's not school property, that's public property. I'm going to presume it said minor children. Almost all the children in a K through 12 high school are minor children.
Right.
And so that doesn't mean they're absolved of the responsibility not to step out into the street. But I don't know whether they were taunting the car. I don't know what the motive was. We don't know anything about that part. But I don't know how the school can protect everyone from any kind of action outside the school building. My head and heart says, why would the school be liable for this? It also says, so why would you foment these kind of activities inside the school? And so it's going to probably take a long legal battle to figure out who's going to be the one that's liable. But back in my day, if you could get up, you walked away. And if you couldn't get up, then they called you away and you healed up and you looked around. But the litigation society is anything that goes wrong, there has to be a lawsuit, a series of competing lawsuits to sort this thing out. And I hope that doesn't happen. I hope our injuries are very minor. But I hope the lesson that comes from this is huge. And instead, though, what we get from that is that these demonstrations are being fomented in the schools all across this land. And these kids are being taught that ICE should not be enforcing federal immigration law anywhere, especially if the local people don't want that. And two people were tragically killed up in Minnesota. And
Mhm.
that's hard for me to watch that. It happened. And I'm not placing blame on this, and neither am I saying that there isn't some no, it didn't come off perfectly, I think would be the way to put that. Tom Homan pretty much said that nobody's perfect. But two people killed demonstrating against the enforcement of federal immigration law. And I would say, how many people have lost their lives at the hands of illegal aliens in this country?
Right.
I I commissioned two GAO studies, general accountability studies, when I was in Congress to identify that number. And it was like pulling teeth to get the information out of the administration, the data that they had. And I mean, I worked them hard. In the end, I took the apples to oranges stuff they gave me. I shut myself for 4 days in the Library of Congress in the private members' secret room and poured through all that. And it came out with extrapolated numbers that were just breathtaking. And so what I'll say, I believe, is that there are graves all over this country, graves every day of Americans that are killed at the hands of illegal aliens, negligent homicide, car wrecks, and also willful homicide, manslaughter. And I would take a point of Cottonwood, Minnesota. It's a school district, Southwest Minnesota. Isn't really a town name by that. But about maybe 10 years ago, there was a school bus that was taking some kids home from school. An illegal alien ran that bus off the road. The bus rolled over. 4 kids were killed. And it were two siblings and then single kids from two other families. So 3 families were traumatized by this and lost. They loved their whole future. They had their whole future in front of them. And I criticized this and said that was a completely preventable crime. That illegal alien had been interdicted before, I think multiple times, and was turned loose back in society again. And there, people were saying, my critics were saying, well, it's just accidents. It has nothing to do with immigration. And I would say, then we deport that person and send them back to their home country according to the law, and then go tell those parents their kids would still be dead if we had done that. No
Yeah.
one could cook them in the eye and do it. This is so tragic. I've got more to say, Tamara, but I
Right.
want to pause for your opinion.
Right. Okay. So, I just enjoy being able to debate and banter with you. This is how adults do it, right?
Yes, it
And
is.
so on the injury, yes, we hope that there are minimal injuries for this student. It makes me wonder, I don't think the car was likely going very fast if that were the case. And think about this. We don't know who the driver was. Could have very well been a minor as well.
Hmm.
Could have been impacted by the same hot, radical, whatever is happening in that school when they're drawing posters in the classroom. So who knows if that student was enraged or scared, or when we go back to, was it remember the Virginia riot where the young man had a car, and if you're a young man, everything you care about is in that car, and it was a pretty nice car, and they were beating it with ball bats, and he put the gas on to get out of there, and that, I think he's still in jail. And I
Probably.
never liked that. I'm sorry. I know someone was harmed. I can't remember if they were killed or not. Tragic. But again, you're in the street. You're stopping a car, and they were beating the car at the time. I just, if he's trying to get out of there, one, for his life, two, for his
That's
possession that probably cost quite a bit at that age for a young man. So we don't know everything here yet, but it's never as clean as they try and make it in the in the headlines. All right. So do you want to comment on that, or because I've got more?
I do, because the part that you said about they were beating on his car with ball bats and he was trying to get out of there. We don't know if he intentionally steered in that direction or steered away,
Right.
but he was under attack
Under
and
attack.
trying to escape. And so here's another one that this is the right time to bring this up. 10 years ago, last July 31st, Sarah Root was killed by an illegal alien on the streets of Omaha.
January 31st. January, right?
What did I say? January 31st?
You said July, but I think it was
Oh, I'm
January.
sorry. My brain was telling me January. Sorry, it was just 3 days ago.
Yep.
That, and 3 days and 10 years ago now. And it was a tragic thing. And I had her mother and father come testify before Congress in an immigration hearing to highlight what happens to Americans. And Michelle, her mother, said it was very good. She was there to attend, but the dad, Scott, testified, and he said, my daughter was killed, and the person who killed my daughter was bailed out for $5,000, and he was back in Honduras before we could bury my daughter, and he got out of the jail for less money than it cost us to bury my daughter. Well, if anything's going to rip your heart out, I still have trouble saying it today, 10 years later. But yesterday, that culprit had been pulled back to the United States.
Because of Donald Trump.
Yes, indeed.
Donald Trump.
And pulled back to the United States, and Donald Trump knows Michelle Root's name and knows her face, and she spent a good amount of time with him. Simon Conway was just all over this for a long time. And so he tipped me off that the sentencing was yesterday. I think I knew it, but it wasn't in my calendar. And so I was able to do FaceTime with Michelle Root after they came out of that. And she's happy, she's relieved. She got to a place of closure on this for the loss of her daughter. Edwin Mejia, the culprit, was sentenced to 21 years in a penitentiary. And that's maybe he gets out in 10 years. Maybe he's not very well behaved and doesn't get out for 21. That wouldn't break my heart at all. But this is another tragic example. And I had so many of them along the way. I brought those people forward. They formed a group, a couple of groups actually, and it's made a difference, and it's helped Donald Trump get to these things too.
Yep. I'm so glad you brought her up because Sarah was on my list. I texted with Michelle the last couple of days. I knew it was coming up. Just kept her in prayer. I got up Monday morning and prayed for her. It was early. I didn't text her at that point because it was so early. And I just thought, if that were facing you today, it's been 10 years, almost to the day. You're right. And if that were still hanging over your head as a mother, she has carried that weight and she has fought for Sarah's honor, for Sarah's memory, and for justice for Sarah for this long. Yeah. And so I just prayed for her the last couple of days. Then I texted her back and forth as well. And I texted her, you're right. She feels she can deal with this, right? This gives her a place. And I just pray that the Lord refresh her and restore her for this 10-year-long battle. So I'm so glad you brought that one up. Thank you so much. And I am grateful I sent Simon Conway and Mrs. C a note and said, thank you for being there with her. So thank you for everything you did to bring that case to light. If nothing else, Congressman, that you were there at that moment in time and you could draw the attention on the national level to this. Yeah. You were building the wall on the House floor before Donald Trump was ever president to talk about it. You were on this. So thank you. All right. So I'm going to come back to this Fremont story. We don't know the students. We don't know the one driving. We don't know the details, but we do know if it's true that this child was in the classroom making this poster during class time. I'm sorry, but that's an issue for me. And so you can try and say it was a non-school event, like they try to do this about lobbying and protest and everything else, but we all know that they're aware of it. My question was, all right, incident aside, if it's supposed to be a non-school event, don't they call parents when a student is truant? If they skip out of the class, don't they call a parent? We have truant officers, for crying out loud, in the budget. So why? And then I put that, and one of our viewers said in a comment, Isn't the school supposed to get permission before students leave the school?
It looks to me like it's a field trip to protest.
It
That's
does.
what it
And
has
so
on it.
for me, I do think the school is liable. I absolutely think they're liable. The poison that they've stirred, I think they were fully aware. They admit they were there and then they're close by for safety. So they were absolutely full aware. And now the fruit of what they have stirred has come home. And so that is unfortunate, but I do think the school, and I know what you're saying about excessive lawsuits and
Yeah.
liability, but I think they're sitting on this one.
Well, I'd like to know a little bit about the culture of the classroom, the teachers that were running this. Wouldn't be hard to find that out. The parents know. Trip to Fremont, Nebraska, and chat with a few people. You'd get down to what's really happening there. But it concerns me a lot because this is a nationwide movement, and it hasn't slowed down. It seems to be growing. More places, more crowds. I don't know if the crowds are bigger, but more crowds, more places, and that's so disturbing that you can. I just know, and you know, Tamara, that there are NGOs out there, entities out there, and individuals out there that have massive bank accounts. And a lot of those accounts were money that's raked from we the people, the taxpayers, into those NGOs, filtered through the Tides Foundation, Soros's Open Society Foundation, and many, many others, to the tunes of the end of billions of dollars that are being used to undercut and undermine our God-given liberty here. And
Yep.
part of that is indoctrinating the brains of these kids from little on up and getting it into the minds of some of the teachers, not all the teachers by any means, but that poison, that leftist Marxist poison. And let's see, there some of that's been promoted along the years too. And I think Cloward and Piven seem to come to mind. The strategy that you break down this society, you overload the welfare system, you turn it into an unsustainable chaos, and then the immolation of it all comes down, and then you rebuild your Marxist civilization out of the ashes. And we're being attacked by the Russians are undercutting us, the Chinese are undercutting us, the Iranians, they're naming it, we're the great Satan there. The infiltration across Europe, the red-green axis that's taking place, that being the communist Marxists teamed up with the Islamists, all of that's second world stuff. And they hate first world stuff. Part of it's class envy because the first world is the most successful civilization known to history. And but what's missing here is the piece about religion. It's their religion also to tear us down. And there's an envy that exists and lives within the heart of man that causes that. And there are a number of references in the Bible about the nature of humans, that how when they look across at the other individuals, and if you're living a more pure life, you're the embodiment of their guilty conscience, and they want to tear you down. And if they can get you out of the way, they think they're going to have a clean conscience, they can go on about their merry, sinful ways.
All right, we've got to go to break. We're late for break. We'll be right back with Congressman King. We're going to get to the CO2 update, the dueling bills that are in the Iowa House, and how one is deceptive. And then we want to get to the government shutdown. Stay tuned. Right back.
This is our new NutraSwish, Numi NutraSwish. You can find more information at Numi, neumi.com/TTSS, neumi.com/TTSS. One of the products we offer, because you all have different preferences and respond differently to different items. So this is our lavender. It's for ladies anywhere along your journey. No hormones in it, but if you're taking a hormonal supplement, you might want to check with your doctor. The blue is for anyone over the age of 18. It has glutathione, which is a antioxidant, helps with over 400 cellular functions, and it helps detox heavy metals forever chemicals, graphene oxide, one of those terms we learned after 2020, and it helps detox glyphosate. The good glutathione helps detox glyphosate. Glyphosate is found in ag chemicals or lawn chemicals, and some are very concerned about possible links to cancers, HPVs, and diabetes. But the blue bottle, the glutathione, helps detox heavy metals, forever chemicals, graphene oxide, and glyphosate. Then there's the mango colored bottle you see on your screen. Numi Neuro helps with your mind, your memory, and your focus. Now, again, after 2020, we heard something about brain fog, a term we'd not heard before. Whether it's from a virus or a vaccine, many have found relief, a little help with Numi Neuro, the mango colored bottle. When used with the blue bottle, it is so positive that the American Brain Council wrote about it and it looked like an endorsement. Though we're told they don't write endorsements, it was simply a positive review of what they saw. You can find more information at neumi.com/TTSS. neumi.com/TTSS for the Tamara Scott Show. Why? Because we want you feeling your best. And when you use that TTSS link, you help us be our best.
All right. So coming back. All righty. Thank you, everybody. I'm trying to get back to you. All right. So I'm here with Congressman King. We were looking up Romans 1 because the MP, member of parliament from Finland, has been now acquitted twice. This is our final headline we're going to discuss today, but has been acquitted twice because of hate speech. And what was her crime? What was she talking about that was so terrible? Well, apparently it was a tweet that she put out on Romans 1, a pamphlet on sexuality, and radio comments. So we don't know the content of what she said, but as Finland Supreme Court weighs her case, she's telling, I think, our Congress that hate speech laws threaten both Christian teaching and democracy itself. Congressman, thoughts on that?
Well, I'll take a guess at Romans. I'm down to verse 18 out of about 28, but this one I would expect that she might use, and it would offend them. It says, Romans 18, the wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. That would be enough. That would be enough to offend them to the point. That lays the guilt on the godless and the wicked. And that's so I'm thinking about Elizabeth Wolf. That name will ring your bell, I think. She was out of Vienna, and she was prosecuted for hate speech all the way up to the European Union's highest court because she was going around giving little programs, and she would ask rhetorical questions like, if a 60-year-old man has sexual relations with a 9-year-old, does that make him a pedophile? Well, that describes Muhammad. And so the rhetorical question was enough for her to be convicted of hate speech all the way up to The Hague. And speaking of The Hague, right there in the Netherlands, you have Geert Wilders, who is a member of parliament in the Netherlands and leader of the largest party now in the Netherlands, although they won't build a coalition government with him. And he was giving a speech a few years ago, and he asked the crowd, is the Netherlands better off with more Moroccans or fewer Moroccans? And the crowd chanted, fewer, fewer. And he said, we'll see what we can do about that. And so they convicted him of hate speech also. And he called me that day after they'd come down with that verdict and let me know that he had lost that argument, that the freedom of speech is very tight across Europe. And I have told them over there, you need American style First Amendment freedom of speech. And they turn back and they say, well, we have more freedom of speech here than you have in the United States. And I said, make your case. And they pointed out a CEO in California who had established an internet company. And he had donated $10,000 to support natural marriage in California. And they took his company away from him and more or less kicked him off the board and took his company away from him business-wise because they didn't like it that he was for natural marriage. I'm using that term, intentionally. So they made that point. I said, well, okay, I hear that. And they said, we don't usually lock people up for this. They learn after we convict them. They don't want to go to jail, so they shut up. Wow. There you have to have freedom of speech everywhere, but civil speech and let the ideas clash. And I grew up with those things. We had those ideas competing, across the supper table in the living room and about everywhere we were. But it was always about, and I said this, let's see, what's her name? Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the congresswoman from Florida. She and I were on CNN one night with Wolf Blitzer was the moderator, and he said to us, why don't you get with Debbie and you two get together? He said, get in a room, and they wanted that, and get together on what you can agree on. If you two agree, that can pass in Congress. And so generally you let the lady answer first, but I interrupted because I said, Wolf, that's not our job. Debbie is never going to change her mind. She's not going to come close to me. She's making the argument on the side of the left. I'm on the other side of this thing. I'm making what I say is a logical argument, but it is from the conservative side. And so what we're doing when we do this dialogue is the people in the middle are deciding which way are they going to go.
Yeah.
And that's the power of the debate.
Yeah, the mushy middle. All right, we're going to move forward, and thank you for that. Thank you for talking. It's just so much insight and experience here. Let's move forward. The CO2, the ever ongoing CO2 battle, overtaking private property using eminent domain for private gain. There are so many reasons and ways we can talk about this. Let's go to Thomas. Let's go to the link on Senator Taylor's website. He rarely is one to make a verbal comment or public comment. He tries very hard to get along with his colleagues in the Senate. I don't think that those on the opposite side of this issue are too concerned about getting along by Senator Clemish's ill behavior. We've talked about that. All right, so you can see the senator there in front of the State House. And I'm not sure when that one was taken, but this is an issue. Anytime that there is an issue, the private property folks show up in force when they can from across the state, no matter how cold it is. One of the last hearings was 8 a.m. last Tuesday morning when Trump was coming into town. People were busy. And of course, if you live 3 hours away, 2 hours away, you had to start at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. It was in a smaller room from what I hear, or that was maybe a bill they'd tried that before. Just little shenanigans and games going on. So, Congressman, give us the difference. Good bill, bad bill, deceit.
Well, the bill out of the House was a bill that actually had a decent hand in writing, and so I'm for that one, of course. But the bill in the House just bans eminent domain for CO2 pipelines. And that's essentially the language that passed in South Dakota that put the brakes on the eminent domain for CO2 pipelines there. And the reasons for that are CO2 pipelines, as presented by Summit, Bruce Rastetter's Summit, those CO2 pipelines they're not transporting a commodity. They're sending it up to a landfill and to bury it. They're not a common carrier. It's exclusive operation for them. So they're not a utility. And that's some of the reasons why no eminent domain for CO2 pipelines. So that language is real clear and real tight. In the bill, it says that no eminent domain for CO2 pipelines or pipelines that are built for the primary purpose of transporting carbon monoxide, actually, which covers all the oxides. So that's it. And the House passed that bill 64-28. And that was not quite as strong as I had hoped, but I did hope. And we had a few people missing and some illnesses in the family and that. So it's a bill that's, let's just say 2-1 passed in the House. And once I was there that day and went down on the floor for that debate and wanted to soak some of that up, and I appreciate the job that they're doing there, all of them. But as I walked out of the House chambers, I learned that Mike Klemisch, the new leader of the Iowa Republican Senate, majority leader, had introduced a bill, Senate File 2067. And there was a little scramble going on. What is this? What's this say? Well, that bill has a number of things in it. I'll just say it was written by Summit Carbon Solutions, Bruce Rastetter, Summit Carbon Solutions. And no press has asked him that question. That should be the first question. Who wrote this bill? I already know the answer, but we ought to have him on record. And so what it does is it just adds to complicate the issue so that they can drag this thing out. I think they want to drag it out to the end of the session. If they can't keep a bill from passing the Senate, the governor can veto it on our way out of Terrace Hill, and then they have done their job to kill this thing. But so here's what he threw in. it lumps all pipelines together. Natural gas pipelines, anhydrous ammonia pipelines, gas, diesel, propane, you name it, they're all together. Why would you do that? We don't have a problem with the other pipelines. They're public utilities, they're transporting a commodity, and they're common carriers. So that's just in there, I think, just to it's an excuse. Someone said last year, we want to fix all the problems. Well, there's only one problem right now. And it says that the bill is to promote the convenience and necessity, which is a statutory requirement in section 479B of the Code of Iowa. So what they're doing is just pandering to that language, but that doesn't mean we're going to get convenience and necessity. It widens the corridor. Summit willingly defined a 2-mile wide corridor for their pipeline. There's no regulation in the state that says you can't define it at any width you want. So they want to go back and redefine that corridor as 10 miles wide. And I had to read it a second time, or any county where they've had an informational meeting. So that's county-wide. If they held meetings, then so I don't know how you draw the map of all the people now whose land would be encumbered if this bill passes. But there are people that have been in the 2-mile corridor facing this thing for 5 years, and it's drained them of their emotions, and they're trying to protect their land. And now we'd widen this thing out to 10 miles wide plus whole counties and put all of those people into and then on top of that, it maintains eminent domain. So I call it the have your cake and eat it too bill. You can have eminent domain, and also you can go anywhere you want, is what it amounts to. And there's language that says that eminent domain is, I don't remember the exact word, and it's like a last resort or something.
Yeah.
But I know what that means. It says someone has to make the financial case that it's not feasible. And so they're going to be presenting the numbers to the Iowa Utilities Commission. And nobody else has a look at those numbers, and the Utilities Commission has capitulated in front of them before. So I don't think it means anything except someone can have eminent domain wherever they want to cook up the numbers to have eminent domain, and they can go anywhere they want to go, and they can put anything in the pipeline they want to put in. And their application to amend before the Iowa Utilities Commission essentially says, we have other opportunities out there. We're not going to tell you what they are, but we just want to have this pipeline permit to go anywhere we want to in Iowa, right up to the borders. And there's no projected destination for their project. They don't say we're going through Nebraska. They don't say we're going to Wyoming to pump this into the ground. They know they can't get through South Dakota. They want a pipeline. And I finally got to the place, Tamara, where I can see that if they can get this permit to build this pipeline, even if it goes nowhere, that whole network of 40-some ethanol plants, build it in there, and if it never gets out of the state of Iowa, they have secured a monopoly on the largest mass of the purest form of CO2 known anywhere in the world. And then they can do with it what they want. They can turn it into methanol, green jet fuel. There's a number of varieties of utilization of CO2. That's not what they proposed, but we abhor a monopoly. And what they're proposing also is a monopsony. That's when you only have one customer. That's the federal government today, but they have nowhere to go with that.
Monopsony. I like it. I don't like 10 miles wide ought to be the stop gate for anybody. 10. I have so many more questions on that, because if I, as a farmer, do it and it goes 2 miles into my neighbor's property, do I now impact them negatively, or do they get a chance to vote and say yes or no?
Well, it looks like nobody gets to vote if Summit wants to go through them.
It's just legal. You talk about legal battles. This is just the conundrum of legal battles. And it's not constitutional. It's not biblical. It's not our platform. And shame on the Republicans in the Senate, who are not only holding out and not protecting their constituents or the Constitution, but they're shaming the ones who are and removing them from committees. That is the travesty and all of that.
Yep.
Congressman, we've got just 2 minutes left. Can you surmise the government breakdown, shut down?
Well, I've been through a couple of those that I can remember. And I tell you the truth, I'm like the rest of the public. I'm not noticing that it's shut down. I'm not watching it very closely. I see that it looks like Speaker Johnson has found a way to crack a few recalcitrant Republicans. I think they're going to open that part of the government up fairly soon. But those leverages in those games, But so it'll get done and we won't notice the difference. And each time there's a government shutdown, it has less and less meaning.
Yeah.
And so that's why it has less now. There is something that looks like it's going to happen. I finally saw the notice on this, had been pushing for it, the SAVE Act. That cleans up our election process so that there can be some more legitimate elections in the country, primarily requiring voter ID in a number of in chain of custody and things like that. That bill has passed the House months ago. It's sitting on John Thune's desk to be offered before the United States Senate. And as I understand this, of course, they're not going to have the votes to break the filibuster, but they have the votes to pass it in the Senate. And so if Thune puts that bill on the floor of the Senate, then the Democrats have to actually do a physical filibuster. In other words, talk until somebody gives up. But they have to talk and the Republicans have to watch. And if over a period of 2, 3, 4 days, eventually everybody that can talk you only get to speak twice on a real filibuster. And so if they're determined, if the Republicans need to be on hand to vote down any motions to adjourn or whatever. But so that's a stamina test. But if Republicans will push this thing through, and my report is that John Thune is ready to place that on the floor of the Senate, we could save our elections going forward with that bill. And I'm sure that that Trump will sign it.
So I saw a headline where Thune said he would not sign a bill that would federalize our elections. I have not read the article, but I would agree. I do not want federal control over much of our elections because they are state run. So voter ID, yes, because that's a constitutional national security issue. I don't have an issue with that one. Only legal citizens. I don't have an issue with that one. Again, a constitutional issue, national security. But as far as a lot of the details, the Democrats kept trying this every time they had a majority to federalize our elections. I'm very cautious about that. So I've got to get in and look at it for myself. But you don't think there's anything in there that federalizes the elections?
I don't know if I can say that unequivocally. I don't know. But I will say this, and I generally agree with you thematically and philosophically on this, Tamara.
Yeah.
But when I look across this country and I see, for example, California, that government of California is so stacked, and they have a mass of electoral votes. And if you're going to let the election fraud take place in California, that means they hand their election votes over and they defraud their own people. That can happen in multiple states. And if, by the way, I saw a map this morning that showed the voter ID, the states that had voter ID laws. There were only 2 states with voter ID laws that Kamala Harris took, and otherwise Trump carried everything else. And the states that didn't have voter ID laws, the rest of them they went for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good. I saved that picture, I think, but it's a pretty good graphic to show you what the difference on is.
All right, Congressman King, we are out of time. So appreciate you joining us today. Thank you for taking time out for us. Appreciate the institutional knowledge, the experience, the wisdom, and just the conversation. To everybody out there, Dennis Bierman was supposed to join us today, and he yesterday let me know he needed to go with a client, but he's going to join us on the 17th. He'll be back with us, and then we'll look forward to having him then. Tomorrow, we're going to finish up with Amber Arrowwood. She started that conversation about SEMA funding the riots in Minnesota. We're going to finish up that conversation with her, and Representative Pam Altendorf is going to drop in from the Minnesota State House on the satanic plaque in honor of Waltz because he's doing such a good job, according to the Satanists. Always interesting. Stay tuned as we tell you, live boldly, love better, laugh bigger, be encouraged, and never be complacent.
2 years ago, whatever was 100%